Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksharo Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Gurudev, good morning. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 11, Verse 8. It's from the story of Lord Rama. Kadachi loka jiknyasur guru ratriam alakshitaha chiran vacho shanot ramo bharyam odishya kasyachita. Shukadev Goswami said, once, while Lord Ramachandra was walking at night, incognito, hiding himself by disguise to find out the people's opinion of himself, he heard a man speaking unfavorably about his wife, Sita. Once, while Lord Ramachandra was walking at night, incognito, hiding himself by a disguise to find out the people's opinion of himself, he heard a man speaking unfavorably about his wife, Sita. So probably most of us, we know the story. There is various Ramayanas, and in the Valmiki Ramayana, it pretty much ends with the despair of Sita, which is a very sad ending, actually. And it ends with this impression that the mother, she has to bear in an unlimited way. So in the end, Sita, she got swallowed by the earth upon her request because she said, it's too much, it's just too much. I don't want this anymore. And like this, the Ramayana, it ends with tragedy, you could say. The whole Ramayana in a Valmiki way, it is just drama, human drama and tragedy. God at the top, also only in drama and tragedy. And then paradoxically, what comes out of the story is sweetness. So this is, let's say, a situation where you have Adobe, the washerman, judging not only the king, but judging God. And I'm not so sure if that particular individual, he knew that Rama is also a god, but for sure it also was not right to criticize the king, not to mention God. And the whole incarnation of Ram is more a compassionate way. I mean, God anyway and always is compassionate. But if you read the most recent Guruji tweet, you can also see a different aspect of how Guruji portrays who is God and how is God. God is not always the one who keeps on bearing our mistakes. God is not always the one who is always patting your back and telling you you're always a good boy and girl, and we can just continue as we are. And the mentality is so big these days that we all think that we are our little kings and queens in our own petty kingdoms, and that indeed we can do as we wish. And actually, I'm grateful that God comes in a way to set this right, because it's not the good path for us. So in this way, the Dobi at that time, okay, he was used, let's say, to make the Ramayana and the whole tragedy become alive. But actually, if you look at it, how he dare to say what God is doing or what the king is doing? Who is he to say? Who are the media today that they're judging Guruji? Yeah. So this is a very pedantic behavior. This is when you want to see the negativity, then this is also what you get from God. And interestingly, I wanted to connect it a little bit with how we should not maybe always be pedantic and yet be pedantic at the same time. Because when I have to give satsang, then sometimes I asked people, or I ask my card deck just to give me a verse. And strikingly, I asked one person recently, please, can you give me a Bhagavad Gita verse? And he said, I think it was, I'm not so good at memorizing the numbers. Yeah, he said 1622, which is about you have to adhere to scripture. You have to base your opinion and judgment on the foundation of proper scripture. For example, the Bhagavad Gita. So that person said 1622, and then yesterday I asked another person, hey, just give me a number between 1 and 18, and then a number between 1 and 30. And so he said 1623, which is just the following verse. So I wanted to read both Bhagavad Gita verses to you in the context of the story of this washerman who criticized God. So Krishna says, one who has liberated from these three gates of darkness, Arjuna, will do what is beneficial to the self and hence reaches that is supreme abode. Whoever disregards the principles of scripture and acts under the influence of their personal desire can never attain perfection, happiness, or the supreme abode. So just to make it clear, Krishna says here, if you act under desire, and if you don't base life on scripture, then it's not possible to attain the supreme abode, to attain Vaikuntha. And I wanted to talk a little bit against unrooted spirituality, because together with that mentioned mentality that we all think we are little kings and queens in our kingdoms, it goes in hand that we have to make our own laws, and that we know already what is right, and that the fantasy might come in that we already know what's right, and that like this we can attain Vaikuntha. I think it's present in everyone that we have figured out some things already to a certain degree, and that we rest a little bit on our laurels to say this might actually work to go to Vaikuntha, the supreme abode. And it's the supreme abode. And when I heard these two Prabhus recently telling me one verse and just the other one next to it, I felt like you drive a little bit too fast with the car and you get flashed. And then you have that very quick infrared flash, and you don't know where it's coming from, and you know, oops, I have to pay a penalty. Yeah, it's exactly that feeling. So I felt like, okay, I maybe have also figured out some things apart from the sheer quantity of things that you have to figure out in Bhakti Marga. But to some degree, I felt it's okay. Maybe I have studied already enough. And I felt, no, I have not. Because if I look deeper, then maybe also I'm exactly one of these persons. Like, I don't exactly base my life on scripture because I don't understand it. It's just too much. Like, if I really, I'm honest, if I want to understand what's really in the Gita, then I go right to the Satsang of Swami Vivekananda, who gave the Satsang, or the lecture talk actually about the extract of the Gita, which means to become a devotee. The lecture is called Bhagavad Gita Decoded. So I very much enjoy this. With having the sheer quantity of things to handle, then let's just, with each one, let's go right to the extract or the essence of it. The essence of all Bhakti Marga is just love. I'm very happy with this, along with the mantra, Shrivita Giridadi Parabrahmane Namaha. For me, that's actually enough. And for me, that reveals everything. Especially since before Bhakti Marga, I already read these books, these stories. I had the Bhagavad Gita in my rucksack to work every time. I studied the Vedas, all of this. So for me, it's just too much. And then I got flashed these past days by the red infrared, and then they said, no, you have to study more. And it's not to know more. That's what I wanted to clarify in the satsang. When I wanted to connect what this washerman behavior is, like being a super pedantic person, and although maybe not being scriptural, what he's doing is he's acting completely inappropriately. And I believe that maybe if we get it wrong, then we do all these things, we read more books, we listen to more of Guruji's satsangs, and we think what you need to do is accumulate more knowledge and base your life upon knowledge. And then I think we have the same danger of becoming pedantic, more pedantic than even before, and maybe even in the danger of criticizing God himself. And these are the worst people to be around with. Like, they know everything already. Guruji once mentioned in the satsang, there was a lady coming to his darshan, and she was having the opportunity to ask some questions in a personal interview with him. And every question she answered, she got an answer from Guruji. She said on top, yeah, I already knew that. And this is the pedantic behavior. That means if you know things, then if you haven't really achieved to that point that you actually don't know anything, then I think it's very non-Vaishnava to we blow ourselves up in a way that we think we know a lot, and then it would become like this washerman. So what if not knowledge? What is the goal of study, and what is the goal of listening to Guruji's satsangs? That I asked myself. If it's not knowledge, he actually said the goal of knowledge should be bhakti, dedication. He said if it doesn't lead to bhakti, then why all the study? But we have to also see that bhakti is rooted in study. You cannot say, bhakti, then I can skip the knowledge. No, it is rooted in knowledge. What do you do if you don't know that you have to focus your attention on the right deity? What do you do if you don't know about the difference between apara and para prakriti? What do you do if you don't know what are the principles of our sampradaya? And they may be different to other sampradayas, or what they mean to you as a person, and why they would lead to your desired goal and maybe not the other path. So that is very important to know. At the same time, like how we dare, like you go and you flood, you spam people with the little bit of knowledge that you have. So then we are like that washerman. And then I thought, okay, but if knowledge is not the goal of the satsang, if knowledge is not the goal of, you can listen repeatedly to Guruji's satsang, and people even, #washerman, they criticize him for always saying the same. How dare you? You always say the same message, the timeless message of love. We should say something different each satsang to fill our minds with variegated knowledge. No, but he actually does not. He pretty much repeats every satsang, the very essence of why he came and what we have to learn to do is to love. He puts it a little bit more precisely that to love means to love itself, and that would be bhakti, to love God, to love in the most ideal way. And that is not knowledge. And that's why I would say that listening to Guruji's satsangs or engaging ourselves in the academy and all of these things, studying the Bhagavad Gita, that leads to wisdom. It becomes a vital part of you. For example, to be a vegetarian, I would say that's just a wise behavior. Even if you ask me, because I became vegetarian or now vegan, I became vegetarian 20 years ago, can you give me the knowledgeable arguments for why you are a vegetarian? I could find some arguments, but I would have a tough time of going in and rationally explain of why I am a vegetarian. It becomes just so natural because everything else in terms of food, it just doesn't make sense. Why I would not eat the things that I ate 20, 30 years ago. It's just disgusting. I wouldn't touch it anymore. It's just not me anymore. And I would say that when we listen to satsang, when we study Bhagavad Gita verses, it's the same. Okay, you can maybe explain certain things, but don't think that you know things. I think we don't know anything. And then you know something, and then it's the tip of the iceberg. Because in essence, we don't know anything, but the great potential that we have is to fully actually realize wisdom, to feel what is right and what is wrong, to feel what leads to a good thing in the future, or to feel what leads to a bad thing in the future. Or even to transcend the good and the bad and just to go through it because you know that it makes sense to focus on God alone, that makes sense. Because every other experience that we have had with Maya, it is just painful and unsatisfactory in the mid or in the long run. And this wisdom, the washerman, he didn't have. So throughout history, in all those Ramayana commentaries, this washerman, he received so much bashing and beating and bad press. I just leave him as he was, because he also played his part. But this is the thing that I wanted to set right, and I wanted to talk against unrooted spirituality, because unrooted spirituality is both. Is when we think, I don't need to study at all, I can just jump in the air and throw the flowers. And unrooted spirituality is also when you do these things for knowledge alone and you don't know that it has to lead to wisdom. Because wisdom is more like a feeling, it is a realization, whereas knowledge is the parrot here that can repeat how many verses and on which page and which letter you have read something. And you make an impression, and if you stop there, then we are not wise. It must be said that Krishna himself in the Gita, he says, to study the Gita, it is a penance by itself. I accept that as dedication to me. And that is awesome. And that is coming from a feeling, that is coming from an attitude where he says, if you do it, I will give you the wisdom that you realize what the Gita actually means. When there comes a situation today, that you know how to act accordingly and not how to quote the verse accordingly. Although quoting the verse is also very good. But there might be very wise people who live the Gita, but they don't know the book even. You know? 3 points of why I want to talk against unrooted spirituality. And we are here on Bhakti Marga, right? So Bhakti means devotion, and Marga means path or avenue. And actually the official translation goes as the path of devotion, and I would rather see it as the path to devotion. Because it's not like you unpack, you install, and you hit the button that devotion will come. But it's a churning process until we arrive through that way of practices, until we arrive at our own devotion inside, and then we feel good. Yeah, simply said, then we feel good. And when Bhakti Marga is a way, a motorway, a highway, an avenue, then for sure also we have these cameras that can flash you with the red light, and you have to pay fines. Yeah, and so there's, let's say, 3 points of how you would behave in normal traffic. When you go to the road, you get your car today, you drive outside, then what are the requirements? And always see the parallels to the actual Bhakti Marga, the way of Bhakti. So the first thing is, maybe except for in Africa and certain South American countries, you would need a driving permit. Yeah, so you would have to make your driver's license, and the driver's license, normally you don't buy it in a shop, but you have to pass a certain examination to have your driver's license. It means you have to get qualified in a way. Yeah. When I passed my driver's license 27 years ago, already at that time it was a big catalog, and I studied for weeks in order to get all the multiple choice questions right. And I remember during the practical examination, I didn't see that lady with the baby stroller, but everything went well, so everyone was protected. But I didn't pass a perfect examination. But I passed. So I received the driving permit, and I know how to drive according to the rules. So if I see there is a red sign with 100 in between, then I say, okay, actually I know I don't have to go beyond 100 kilometers. Yeah. Say, with time and experience and maturity, we learn that maybe in certain situations you can act differently and you can drive a little bit faster, because sometimes it just doesn't make sense. Sometimes even you have to go slower than most of the others, or what are the rules, because you have learned, #wisdom, you have learned to apply the rules. Yeah. And this is, let's say, when we compare it to Bhakti Marga, where we all go from no Bhakti to lower Bhakti to higher and highest Bhakti, it's similar in the way of how the wisdom helps us to actually become independent in some way from the rules, that not every time you have to check in the manual of what is right and wrong, which page, which verse, which syllable. So you pass your driver's license, let's say you have certain knowledge, you do certain practices, and like this you are qualified, you're initiated maybe, you bring a certain interest, and like this you are qualified, you have your permit to drive on the Bhakti way. And then when you have gained some experience of this is what I have experienced as my ups and downs and various traffic situations over the years, you learn this is the best way to drive according to the rules that I have known already. Yeah. So here, the rules are still valid, yeah, but you have learned to actually put them into practice. And then finally, we become independent in a way that we actually know what is right and know what is wrong, that maybe sometimes even exceptions can be made. But everyone, I think, here would agree, and everyone who listens to this, that at every stage of this inner development where we are, the rules are the same. Nobody dismounted the traffic sign. Nobody changed the catalog of rules that we have to study initially. So the rules, the Shastra, the study, the knowledge, the framework, it always stays the same. But our own development and our own handling of these rules, it become a little bit more adult, I would say. So in the beginning, of course, you need a certain confinement, and it is very important that you learn how to bow in this direction, you don't put your feet in this way, you have to put your water with the pot, copper pot, you take prasad with the left and in the right, and you make this mudra to take the prasad. There's so many rules. And then the pedantic washermen, they come and say, you have made a mistake, you should do like this. And mostly the pedantic washerman has been here for 1 or 2 years, and the other person maybe for 10 years. So, and then we progress and say, actually with all the amount of things that happen, maybe it's not always possible to do it always by the rule book. I know the rules, but also I have seen that sometimes it's okay and just we have to move on, And then that's okay with God as well. But actually the rules never changed. And this is what I want to point out, that when people say, I don't need to study, I don't know the rules, I don't need to know the rules, and yet anyway I can expect to be driving on the Bhakti Marga towards the feet of Lord Narayana, that is a wrong conclusion. That is strong avidya. Yeah. Anyone who says that they can attain the Lord without the necessary driving permit, just try it in your home country, that today you drive without driver's license, and maybe the police, they call you out, hello, can you give the papers, etc. and you don't have the necessary papers. It is a very uncomfortable situation. It is exposing. So like this, to be initiated as a devotee is not enough. It's not the driver's license per se, but that the knowledge would be really the foundation. And this is what Krishna says, is to really make knowledge the foundation. Yeah? And the foundation is not the house. Yeah? The foundation is not the roof. The foundation is not the first floor or the second or the third floor, but it's the foundation. So I encourage myself and I encourage everyone just to go back to studies. But why is it encouraging? Because to me, to know more is utterly unmotivating. Because I already know that I don't know anything. And reading this book 100 times more, it won't do any change. I just don't know anything. I'm so convinced of that. But for the sake of wisdom, where I see maybe I'm not fully wise yet in how I prioritize my day, how I invest in my life, how I navigate through the things, and that would actually really motivate me. And also go back to listening to Guruji's satsangs, acknowledging, yes, every day he says the same. Because what else is there to say than just love? If it is the essence of everything, it is the essence of every satsang as well. Just grab the formula. But to see it really from the point of that it is transforming. It is transforming us to study. It is transforming us to listen to his satsang. And it is equally transforming in seva. Seva is not primarily to get the work done. We all know that. Otherwise the work would get done much earlier. But the work that Guruji wants to get done is to get us wise. Because let's say the saints, they are all wise. And this wisdom is inherent. Yeah, so I will go back to study. I pay my fine because I got flashed on the road. And I encourage you to do the same. Jai Gurudev.
Simhaya Namaste Narasimhaya Namaste Narasimhaya Namaste Narasimhaya Prahlada Laida Dayene Prahlada Hare Narasimho Hridaye Narasimho Hare Narasimho Hridaye Narasimho Narasimham Harim Sharanam Prapade Narasimham Harim Sharanam Prapade Narasimham Harim Sharanam Prapade Narasimham Harim Sharanam Prapade Tavakara Kamalare Nakamabhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Danu Bringa Keshavadita Nairahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Navakara Kamalavare Nakamadhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringa Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Nashingadev 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 Jaya Nashingadev Jaya Nashingadev 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 Jaya Nashingadev Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Bhakta Svarupa Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Bhakta Svarupa Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Shri Vishwananda Gurudev 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 Shri Vishwananda Gurudev Shri Vishwananda Gurudev 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 Shri Vishwananda Gurudev Shri Vishwananda Gurudev 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 Shri Vishwananda Gurudev